Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 3 video. So, a couple of things I wanted to talk about. I wanted to break down the behind-the-scenes teaser that we got for Season 3. We actually got one last Monday, and there's going to be another one tomorrow, so I'll break that one down tomorrow. But I do want to talk about the one that was released last Monday, because it actually gets into a really interesting new character that I honestly think is going to be one of the coolest characters The Walking Dead has introduced in a while. And yeah, I want to get into the episode titles as well for the first 4 episodes of Season 3. And yeah, some other stuff. So make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, I guess the first thing I do want to get into is the episode titles. And so the episode titles are in Spanish, I believe. And as you can see, I mean, I guess I might as well just read the translation here, but it says Costa de Mort, the offering, the sacrifice, and then border justice. And so to me, it seems like what the story is going to be here based off of these 4 episode titles is the first one there is really going to be, I feel like, just getting to Spain. It's going to be like, we're in Spain now, and I mean, I still don't know how the episode's going to play out in terms of, like, do they get to Spain halfway through? Is it like an ending scene thing sort of thing? Or, you know, like, I think they will get to Spain in that first episode, though. I do believe so. Like, I think that there has to be a point to the first episode, and I think that that will be the overall story there is, like, you know, they get to London, they're going to try to get to America, but then they end up in Spain. I think that's going to be the story for the first episode. There's not going to be a lot of, like, introducing other characters. We might see other characters, sure, but, like, learning the characters' names and going to a community, this and that, I think that's a lot for the first episode, especially because they're going to be in London, right? And there's a bunch of stuff happening there. So I think they're going to tell all of that in the first one. And then the second one here, the offering, what are they offering or what's the story about here? But I know that a part of the story is going to be them trying to get into this community here. And the leader, whose name is Fede, actually doesn't want them to be in the community. And so maybe there's something there. Like, maybe Daryl and Carol have something to offer the community where it's like, well, we can help protect you, this and that, or maybe that's a part of the story for episode 2. And then there's the sacrifice. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what that's about. Like, that's the thing too. There's going to be a lot of, like, ceremonies and stuff and a lot of celebrations of, I mean, I'm not entirely sure yet. I guess we'll learn a lot more about that as we get into those episodes. And so a lot of that could play a role here in episode 2 and 3. Border justice, I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I feel like it's just going to be really related to, you know, like the border of their community kind of thing. And maybe it's, you know, like they have this part, but there's going to be, like, villains out there, obviously, in the story that, you know, want this community or this and that. And so there might be a lot of, you know, stuff going on there. It's actually cool that we have the episode titles for this because it means that we're very close to the show premiering. So yeah, that's pretty amazing. I mean, it is on September 7th, which is 5 weeks from today. So that is really amazing. I'm excited to see what the story here is going to bring for the show specifically, because there's all this excitement now, you know, for Daryl and Rick to reunite. But, you know, I think Melissa McBride said it best during her interview. I believe it was with Collider. I'm pretty sure it was with Collider. But she was saying, you know, like, she doesn't want to think about, you know, the future, this and that. She just wants to more live in the now kind of thing. And, like, in terms of Carol's story. And I think that that's really where we should be with the season here, is really just enjoy season 3 here and see how they build to season 4. And I guess obviously whatever's going to happen next. But honestly, I think the story here for season 3 is going to be really great and likely better than season 1 and 2. I think for sure season 2. Season 1, we'll have to wait and see, because there's an element to that story there in the very first season where, you know, Daryl's on his own and he's trying to survive. Like, I really like that first episode. There's a lot of just, like, you know, the story or the season is just all about Daryl, right? And I think that's the one thing that's kind of cool about that season, is that it's just like, it's one character that we know and we're just following the one character the entire time, right? And so we'll have to see how that works with Daryl and Carol going to Spain. But the last 2 episodes of season 2 were really great. Like, the second that Daryl and Carol were together, it was like, oh, this is what the show should have been the entire time, right? So I imagine that that's going to be the thing going forward, right? Is that, like, Daryl and Carol, having them together is, like, the best thing for the show. So I think what's really awesome is that we have 7 episodes. Like, I kept assuming that there was only going to be 6 episodes for this, but it's actually going to be 7 episodes. And so it was originally announced, or actually it wasn't really announced, but the talk was that it was going to be 6 episodes, right? And so now we learn that it's going to be 7 episodes, which means that the finale is going to be airing on October 19th. And so that's incredible. I think that is, you know, I would prefer the show to air in October, but I think like 3 seasons of the show, and there's only going to be 4. It's always airing in like early September, or I guess just in September in general. I think last year was late September, but I think that next year for season 4, it's likely going to be out in September as well. So I think that that's kind of what we have to expect now from The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, is that it's going to be a show that, you know, I think airs in September. I think that that's really what's going to happen next year as well. So yeah, you know, having it air, you know, very close to Halloween, like the finale anyways, I think is going to be really awesome, because I just kind of want Walking Dead content in, you know, I guess the fall season. And I guess it is airing in September, and a lot of people, you know, once September is here, it's like everyone's in like the Halloween mindset, right? But yeah, to me, it's The Walking Dead. When it's fall and it's October, it's The Walking Dead to me. And so the September thing has been a little weird, because I feel like, honestly, this show would be a lot more successful if it aired like early October to like the end of November. And so having it moved like a month sooner, I don't really understand that, but I mean, it is what it is, right? But let's actually get into the behind the scenes teaser here. So on the latest episode of Behind the Dead that came out, we actually do see a lot more from the community here, and we see a new character named Fede. And so I actually think this character is going to be a really incredible character. Like, the actor just seems really cool, and like you just see the character in the way that he's talking to everybody here. Like, he just seems like a really cool, grounded, like down-to-earth character that is very protective of his community here. And he won't allow Daryl and Carol to be here because it's, I mean, obviously, like, he doesn't know them, you know, they just showed up out of nowhere. There's a lot of stuff that I'm sure the community is dealing with here, but it's going to be one of those things where I think, you know, obviously, like, maybe he does allow them to stay. Like, I would like it if they maybe changed it in a way where it's like he doesn't want them to stay, but they stay for a little bit, but maybe in the end, he actually still doesn't want them to stay, right? I mean, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see where that goes. I imagine that they're all going to be on the same side eventually towards the end of the season, and we'll see where that builds to for like the final season. But he doesn't want Carol and Daryl to enter his community. And then you see a couple of other characters actually just being like, well, we can't like leave them out there, right? And we have to help them. And so I think that it's going to be a very classic Walking Dead story, at least, you know, in the very beginning here. I think this is going to be episode 2. I do think that very early on in episode 2, we're going to see, well, I think episode 1 will end with them in Spain, and maybe they see other characters there or whatever, or maybe episode 2 just begins with Daryl and Carol traveling, you know, in Spain, and then they run into other characters and eventually end up in this community here. And I think a lot of these scenes here are going to be really episode 2, and it's going to be a lot of talking about like, well, what do we do now kind of thing, right? And I like storylines like this because it really reminds me of Herschel from season 2, where he didn't want any of them to be on his farm, right? And he just wanted them to leave, this and that. And sometimes he was like, all right, you can stay, but then stuff would happen. He's like, all right, no, you guys gotta go, right? So it would be kind of cool if maybe the story was a lot like that, where Fede is like, yeah, you can stay, but like, these are the rules kind of thing. And then they break these rules, and it's like, okay, no, now he wants them to go. Stuff like that I think would be really cool, because it creates a lot of tension, right? If there's certain rules that you have to live by, then maybe, you know, Daryl is like, yeah, we have to follow these rules, and Carol's like, I don't know about that. And then, you know what I mean? Because like, that was the thing in season 2, like Rick was like, all right, we got to follow Herschel's rules, but then Shane was like, no, I don't want to do that, like, we're gonna end up dead if we do that, right? And so it created all this tension and everything, and I think it would be a really cool aspect to the storyline of the community here if we can get that this season. I do think the Spain storyline is going to be really exciting once we actually get there, because like, we don't really know anything about, you know, the Spain storyline overall, because like, if you think about, like, I always say this, like, if you think about The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 1, leading up to the show, we knew nothing about the France storyline. We didn't even know how Daryl got to France. Like, we knew nothing. We just saw him on the boat, and it was like, well, how did he get there, right? Like, there were so many things that we didn't know about the villains or anything. So I think once we actually watch the very first episode or the second episode, there's going to be a lot of excitement that happens there. I think especially with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, because this show is just really popular, I would say, compared to, you know, The Walking Dead Dead City. I guess Daryl and Carol are just, you know, they're that popular. So there were a couple of things that they actually talked about during Comic-Con that I do want to kind of get into here, and that is that episode 5 is apparently supposed to be a lot like a Western. I think the whole season in general is going to be a lot like a Western, but I think episode 5 is really like, I think it's going to be the train episode, because you see in the trailer, like, Daryl is fighting somebody on a train, there's walkers around, and I think that that's going to be the one with the motorcycles and all that, so I think that'll be pretty cool. And we also did learn that season 4 is going to be tonally different from season 3. like it's going to have the same tone overall because they're in Spain. And I guess we'll see in the finale how it sets up season 4. So there will be, there will be like a general story or whatever tone, I guess, right, for the next season. But apparently they're going to be changing stuff up, and, it'll be a little bit different. And so that's going to be kind of interesting. Like that's just sort of what I've been wondering about. And I guess it's what everyone's going to be wondering about for the next, like, what year now, right? Is like, how is this going to end? Like, they're just getting to Spain now. And I think once they get to Spain and we see the storyline there, then we're going to be at that point, and it's just going to be, how does this wrap up, and like, where do they go to eventually get back to America? And I think, like, we know that, they're trying to get to America right now. That's going to go wrong. They're going to end up in Spain. But as soon as they mention, well, like, we have to go back home, like, we know they're likely going to be going back home at the end of season 4, right? And there was a mention actually from David Zabel about the ending of the show being like satisfying or something. But he also mentioned like open-ended. So I feel like, yeah, that obviously is something that, I mean, we've all been talking about. It seems like it's going to be set up for something else, like another spinoff or whatever they're going to do after that. But that is interesting, though. That is really interesting. And yeah, we'll have to wait and see, I guess, where this season goes. But I'm really excited. We're 35 days away. I'm going to leave it here, though. Definitely post your thoughts down below and your excitement for season 3. Or if you're not excited, just let me know why. And I really do think that once we get into the season, like once we watch the very first episode, it's going to be like, okay, like The Walking Dead is back and this feels like The Walking Dead, because that's usually what happens anyways. Like I do think that with the spinoffs, it's always kind of been like that. And I think that's why I want the characters to all reunite at some point and do a show like that, because I just think that there's so many elements that all the characters individually bring right to a show or to a story that it just feels like The Walking Dead when they're all together. And I think when they're separated, like, that's why I was really excited about Dead City, because you see like that aspect of the story. But then you watch The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon and it's like, well, there's this other, element, I guess, of the story. And so when they do reunite, that's going to be really cool because it's going to feel like The Walking Dead, right? But anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.